What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back a little late here, but we are back with our college basketball top 25 rankings for week 8. Not that many basketball games last week got canceled due to COVID and Christmas. Not too much is going to be happening in this week's video, but there are some movements. But before we get into those movements, we're just keeping kind of the same teams here and the others receiving votes. Texas Tech surprisingly didn't even fall out of the AP after losing to Gonzaga last week, but I guess that just shows how much respect they have for both those programs. Arkansas, was a really good team coming in the year. They fell out. And two teams on the surge. You got West Virginia and Wake Forest. But Ty, you want to talk about the Big Ten teams?
Yeah, well, I'll throw in Texas Tech as well. I think Illinois and Texas Tech, while they're not ranked right now, I think they are going to be really good teams by the end of the season. And once they get into conference play, I think they're going to start to prove that, especially Illinois. I know they started out pretty poorly, but I think they're really going to get it figured out and be right where we thought they would be at the start of the season.
And we'll jump right into the rankings here. We got Xavier. Played one game last week, lost at Villanova for their second loss of the year. Not a terrible loss. It was a good game. They didn't, get blown out by any means. But they do just crack the 25, as we still have some respect for them. This week, they don't have any games. I think just because, you said the Big East is a mess right now with COVID and health and safety protocols, all that. But to this Xavier team, we're going to keep saying every week that the Big East is just up for grabs, and lots of unexpected teams come March from the Big East that should, make a run to the title and, make some noise.
And we got Oklahoma at 24, and really a surprising team that no one really expected anything from, but just shows you get a good coach to come in, you can have success very early. And we're seeing that with Porter Moser at Oklahoma. 11-2. No one really saw that coming. They should beat Kansas State this week, I would think, and get to 12-2. But we're going to see what they're made of here in the Big 12, as that conference is absolutely loaded this year like it usually is. So we'll find out more about them coming up.
23rd, we got Colorado State. 10-0, great start for them. Nothing last week. Nothing this week, so not really much to report on this Rams team.
All right, we got Uconn at 22, and one of the few Big East games that hasn't been canceled due to COVID this year. Uconn beat Marquette on the road. That's a very good win for them. They're finally healthy. They haven't really been healthy all year, aside from the Auburn game, and they're proving that they are a really good team when they are healthy. So I think this team is definitely, I would say, top 3 in the Big East, if not top 4. But when they're healthy, it hasn't been often yet, but when they are, this is a really good team, probably a top 15 team. They just have to avoid injuries going forward.
21st, we got Houston, who took a big blow, losing Marcus Sasser out for the year. So that's why we dropped them, kind of like a future where we can see them ending up. But, we're not the AP and just kind of, it hasn't happened yet. We'll wait and see how it affects. But, we're kind of just call it how it is. And losing your best player this early, obviously it sucks losing him, but I think it's a great thing for a team-wise, because you're not trying to scramble and figure things out, right before you're making the title run. You got 3 months to, gel as a team again, learn to work without him. It could be a struggle early on. The American Conference isn't too tough of a conference, but I think, a few more losses here and there, maybe a upset loss or two, at least early, I would say. But Houston, no doubt in my mind, will probably stay in the top 25 just because they're in that weak American Conference.
All right, Providence keeps rising in our rankings despite not playing last week, but they come in at number 20 this week. 2 big games coming up, especially the Seton Hall game. I think they have a case right now to say they're the best team in the Big East. I'm not saying they are, but they might be able to make the best case right now. They've played some really good basketball all year, obviously only losing 1 game. They already have a win at Wisconsin as well, which is a really good win, especially on the road. So they played really well in non-conference. We'll see if they can keep that going in conference play. But as of right now, it'd be really hard to say that they're not the best team in the Big East from the start of the season till now.
And at 19th, we got another Big East team in Villanova. We beat Xavier. Kind of a big win, I guess you could say, for them, just because they really needed that win. That record at 8-4 right now doesn't really show how good this Villanova team is. They've just got the short end of the stick, at least to start the year, playing a ranked opponent, and it seemed like every time they would lose. This is their first win against a ranked opponent this year, and now you're going on the road, Seton Hall, tough place to play. Doesn't get any easier. And Villanova, I think, it's too early to say this is a game you got to win, but 5 losses and we're just starting the month of January isn't really a good recipe to make March Madness. So I know it's early, but I think this is a must-win game for Villanova. And, when you got Jay Wright as a head coach, I think you're in pretty good hands.
We got Kentucky here at 18, and this team is really starting to gel and come around and look like the team we thought they would be at the start of the season. 2 weeks ago now, they didn't play last week, but they destroyed North Carolina in Las Vegas, which was really impressive. Actually, they did play this week. They played Western Kentucky, kind of just threw that game in there last minute with COVID and everything. But Oscar Tshiebwe, top 5 player in the country right now, in my opinion. 28 rebounds in one game, pretty incredible. And finding a talent like that for this team, who already has a ton of talent, could be really dangerous. So I think going forward, you're really going to start to see Kentucky hit their stride.
And 17th, we got Alabama, who took a minor step back after losing. I was talking about it. I think Davidson could trip them up, and they did. I think it's not really anything of a panic thing. Just a team that matched up well against Alabama, and they got, they pulled it out. But now how are you going to rebound? And I think that's going to be a big question this week, as you got one of the better teams in the SEC at your place. You win this game, I think, there's nothing to worry about. Life goes on. But if you lose this game, some question marks will arise in Alabama, because, losing 2 straight, one to an unranked opponent who's, not getting any respect, and then Tennessee, who's been up and down all year. Alabama, another kind of must-win game, I think, early on in the year.
All right, we got Tennessee at 16, and we were never really high on this team up until last week, but I got to give them their props now. They beat Arizona, who I thought was a really good team, a top 5 team in my mind, and that was a really good win for them to really prove that, they belong in the top 20, maybe the top 15. This week they go to Alabama, though. That's going to be another really tough test, especially on the road. Alabama, of course, coming off that tough loss. So it'll be a tough turnaround for them coming off a big win. But if they can win that game, I think you got to consider putting them in the top 10, because if you can beat Arizona and Alabama back-to-back, especially with the talent they have, they're going to have a strong argument that they belong in the top 10.
And at 15th, we got the undefeated LSU Tigers. Yes, you're reading that right. Now it's time to show up and prove that you're really a good 12-0 team. You got Auburn on the road, one of the preseason picks to win the SEC, but Tari Eason has been the guy for LSU this year. The sophomore, 16 a game, almost 8 rebounds a game. And I just think, what comes down to it is the plus minus. And every time he's on the floor, his plus, he's always in the plus. And I think he's going to be the factor if, LSU can pull off the upset against Auburn.
All right, Texas comes in at 14, and despite having possibly top 5 talent, I think this is a rightful ranking for Texas. They haven't really done anything crazy yet in the season to prove that they should be any higher than this. I think West Virginia coming in there, that would be a good win for them to get off on the right track in Big 12 play and kind of hit their stride a little bit because the schedule is going to get tough in the Big 12. I mean, you got 6 or 7 ranked teams or, at least borderline teams in that conference out of 10. So it's going to be tough for Texas. I think they'll start to continue to gel more and more as the season goes on. And I think they're a team to look out for to potentially win the Big 12 and be a 1 or 2 seed in the tournament at the end of the year.
And at 13th, we got Ohio State. Didn't play last week. One game got canceled this week. But on Sunday, they're going against Nebraska. And they're looking to move to 3-0 in the Big Ten. And I don't really see a big problem here. When you have EJ Liddell on your team, I think you're pretty much going to dominate. And a key name for Ohio State that I think, needs to kind of pick it up is Jamari Wheeler. The senior, he's getting almost 30 minutes a game, but he's only averaging 6 points. I know that, they're not asking him to do too much, but I think they need a little more production out of him. And even the guard play to just, be a top 10 team moving forward. But, early in the season, there was a little panic for Columbus, obviously the football team, we know how that went. And then now the basketball team, I think they're going to rebound. And then at the end of this year, this team may be a basketball school moving forward.
All right, Seton Hall at number 12. I think they deserve this spot right now, but we're going to find out this week if they really belong here as they go to Providence and then they get Villanova at home. No disrespect to Seton Hall, but I think those are the 2 best teams in the Big East right now. So that's a tough week right there. I think 1-1 out of that, they'll be happy. They wouldn't drop too far in our rankings for sure if they get one of those wins. But I think they need at least one of them to just prove that that their wins weren't a fluke. I mean, they won at Michigan, a team who really struggled at the beginning of the season, still is struggling now, and a close home win over Texas, who isn't quite what we thought they were. So Seton Hall is definitely a really good team, but this is the week where they got to prove that they're top 15, maybe top 10.
11th. Yes, I am getting both of the 2 teams I don't like, but I'm not going to be biased. And this Michigan State team is finally becoming that team that, all right, they're going to be good this year. Last year was kind of up and down, but this year I think they're here to stay. But before you get too ahead of yourself, that at Northwestern game on Sunday could be a trip-up game. Northwestern, they're 8-2 right now, but I think come Big Ten play, they'll be 500 at best. But right now, it is their Super Bowl, you could say. Just because, you normally don't get a top 10 team in the country coming into your place. Place is going to be rocking, especially Sunday before classes start. So everyone's going to be back and they're going to be there. So definitely a game to watch there. But I think, when you have Gabe Brown on the floor running your team, I think you're going to be in good company and great hands. As long as he can stay healthy, this Michigan State team is destined to a Sweet 16 run.
All right, we got Auburn at number 10. I was going to say 11. This team, I think, has proved that they were very underrated at the start of the season, and they definitely are the best team in the SEC right now. That conference is very top-heavy, so that could change very fast. But right now, I would say they're the best team in that conference, and they can prove that with LSU coming in and give them their first loss. That's going to be a huge game this week, LSU-Auburn, potentially to prove who is the best team in the SEC right now. If LSU wins the game, they'll have an argument. But Auburn, just the way that they play works for how their team is built. They're a layup or 3 offense, and that's the way they've gone about it the last few years, and it's really working well for them. And it just makes them fun to watch, and they'll be competitive all year to stay in that top 15 or maybe even the top 10.
At 9, we got Arizona, who may be ducking the 2 best teams in their conference. I believe they got hit with some COVID, but they were supposed to play UCLA and USC this week. 2 teams in the top 10. But last week I took them, played a great game against Tennessee, just couldn't pull it out on the road. They win that game. They're top 5 team hands down at 12-0, but they didn't. Dropped a little. And I think, definitely a surprise team. When we were watching that Michigan game, we were like, oh, this Arizona team is pretty good. And this good, I didn't think they were going to be this good. But, that's what happens when you get hot at the beginning of the year and you go on some runs. So definitely an interesting team to look forward to moving forward.
All right, we got USC at number 8. Not the most exciting team so far, but look at their record, 13-0. So it's hard to discount that. Like you said, they were supposed to have a huge home game this week. Arizona coming in. Obviously, that's not going to happen now. So they'll remain undefeated through this week, going into January. Can't ever complain about that. 13-0 going into January. But this team with Isaiah Mobley now, not Evan Mobley, they haven't missed a beat from last year, losing Evan. So I think this team can compete and possibly be a step above even UCLA or Arizona if they continue to play the way they have in non-conference. I still think they need a marquee win against one of the top 3 teams, Arizona, UCLA, and I guess just those 2. They need a win over those 2 teams to prove themselves and, show that the 13-0 start wasn't really a fluke.
7th, we got Iowa State. And according to Tyler Helgeson, he says this is the biggest fraud team in the country. He is an Iowa State fan. He follows. And, I know we're going to bring it up every time. 2 wins last year to 12. Yeah, it may be a little fluky, but you still got to give them credit when credit's due. And now you got the number 1 team coming into your place. Let's see what you got. As much as I want to stay Iowa State and, be like, they are that team, I just can't see it right now with how good Baylor is playing. But you never know. It's college basketball. That's why I love it so much. You never know what's going to happen, but definitely should be a good game on New Year's Day.
All right, we got Kansas at number 6. Now we get the best team in the Big 12. And Kansas has just shown that they have way too much talent for a lot of these teams they're playing. I still think that Dayton loss was just a game you can almost throw out if you're Kansas. They've proved before that and after that game that they are much better than how they played in that game. It's definitely just a fluke game. It happens in basketball. But aside from that, this is a top 2 team, I think, in the country based on what we've seen from them so far. They just go 8 or 9 deep with very good talent in their lineup, and they're going to be tough to keep up with for a lot of teams in the country.
Coming in at 5, we got that UCLA team who's been hit with COVID, it feels like, for the last month. Hopefully everything, in their program, everyone gets healthy and they don't have to deal with it moving forward. As that's really the only thing we can report on them right now. Just because, this team hasn't played in 3 weeks, I would say, in a minimum. So UCLA, they're not moving anywhere.
All right, we got Gonzaga at number 4, and unless something crazy happens, this team will not fall from the top 5 for the rest of the season. Going to BYU, going to St. Mary's, those are, I want to say, their only 2 possible losses before the conference tournament. It's just that time of the year for Gonzaga where they just go through conference play and, have a few hiccups here and there, but for the most part, they're probably going to go 17-1 or 18-0. So for a while here, there's not going to be too much to talk about with this team, aside from a lot of blowout wins. Obviously, tremendous talent. They deserve this spot. But like I said, going forward, it's going to be a lot of ho-hum games for Gonzaga.
And at 3rd, we got Duke, who, they got Notre Dame at their place. We've already seen what's happened once in Notre Dame and that upset in Kentucky. But I can't see this Duke team repeating that performance just because, when you got Paolo out there, you're pretty much going to win the game. And, last week against Virginia Tech, pulled away. It was kind of dicey in the first half a little bit, but, ACC game, first game, butterflies, I'm assuming probably. But, Now you got your first ACC road game, and I don't really see Notre Dame being a problem for them. So I expect them to, to at least be third again next week.
All right, we got Purdue here at number 2. This team to me, before it was the Rutgers game where they lost. Before that game, they looked almost unbeatable to me. I thought they were just going to run away with the Big Ten. Now I'm not sure that's the case. I'm just not quite sold on them being this unstoppable force in the conference like they seemed a couple weeks ago. They've had I want to say 3 subpar performances in their last 4 games. So they got to get that figured out before conference play really gets into effect. So easy win this week should be, but they got to prove themselves again and prove that they are the top dog in the Big Ten. And that starts here in January coming up as they have Wisconsin coming in.
And at 1, we got the defending champs who look like the best team in basketball, obviously, and they still look like they're playing for the championship every game. This Baylor team, lights out. Not even really a close call, I believe. They've just kind of, you could say the Oregon game, I believe, a few weeks ago, but, they still won, pulled it out at the end. And at Iowa State, I know we were talking about it, the fluky team, but it's a home game for Iowa State. They got everything going for them right now. But I can't see how Baylor loses just because of how good they've been playing. I don't know. I'm just really high on Baylor. It was kind of amazing to me, seeing Baylor so low to start the year, not getting enough credit. You just won the national championship and you're only losing, I think, 3-4 guys. It's not like you're losing half the team. So kind of a little disrespected there, but they took that personal, and that's why they're here at number 1. And that's why they deserve to be there. And before we go, make sure you hit that subscribe button, click like and comment, let us know how we're doing in these rankings. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.
She never called back.